The Media Center for Art Education and Technology, a service of the Monterey County Office of Education, along with the Herald Live, presents PrepNation. Now to your hosts, Dave Kellogg and John Devine.
Welcome to PrepNation Playoff Edition. I'm Dave Kellogg alongside John Devine. It's CCS football semifinals week. We've got 3 teams left in the big tournament. Division 1, Salinas. In Division 3, we have Monterey, and in Division 4, Seaside. Let's start with Division 1, where Salinas meets an old nemesis.
A team they played actually just 6 weeks ago in San Benito, a team that they beat 26-6 6 weeks ago. But again, that was 6 weeks ago, Dave, and things have changed a little bit, I think, with both teams.
So what has happened with these 2 teams, John?
Well, they're both winning.
Yeah.
I mean, San Benito is 4-1 in their last 5 games, and Salinas, after enduring that little 2-game losing streak to Palma and Monterey, has rattled off 3 straight wins as well. And I think both are just playing more fundamentally sound now. They're running the ball. They're 2 very similar teams. They like to run the ball and like to play aggressive defense, and neither team has lost since facing Palma.
How did San Benito look last week against Alisal?
Pretty good from what I was told. I wasn't there, right. But from what I'm reading and from what I gathered, they dominated that game. They shut out Alisal 20-0. That was the first time Alisal had been shut out all year.
And that must have been a tough thing for them to go to Alisal, which was hosting its first playoff game ever, right?
Well,
So
yes and no. I mean, you're right about Alisal playing their first ever home game, but Alisal hasn't won a playoff game in the history of that program. Okay. And San Benito's got some experience, obviously, having been to this playoffs, I don't know, 20-25 years now. And they've had Alisal's number. I mean, they've beaten 7 out of the last 8 times, so it wasn't a complete surprise. The score was, but not the result.
Mm-hmm. So Hollister can play on the road. They're coming to the pit. What kind of, how's that going to play into things?
Well, I think Salinas is excited the fact that they have a home game. I mean, hosting a semifinal home game in the pit, there's probably no better place to watch a game. That being said, Salinas hasn't beaten San Benito at home since 2005, and even that game ended up being a forfeit because of an ineligible player. So technically, they haven't beaten San Benito at home in almost 15 years.
Wow. Wow. You expect a fired-up crowd for this one, though?
I expect a great crowd from both sides. Hollister travels well. As we know, Salinas fills their side every week. And a lot at stake here. These teams are meeting in the semifinals now for the 2nd time in the last 4 years. And the first time they met back in 2009, Hollister rallied from a 13-0 halftime deficit to win that game 14-13 to get to the finals.
Does Salinas have any kind of semifinal thing in their head? They've been to the semifinals. They can't seem to make that jump to the finals.
You know, I asked Coach Goodbody about that today, and he made a good point. He said, listen, these are different kids than what played 4 years ago, what played 3 years ago, so it's not really in their heads. Sure, they probably hear about it and are tired of hearing about it, but he also told me in his mind it takes 5 years to build a program to get to where you want to get. He's in his 7th year now. This is their 5th straight trip to the semifinals. I think it's their year.
Okay. Let's hear some more of what Coach Steve Goodbody had to say.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing Hollister again in San Benito. Coach Cameron's going to have his crew ready to go. They have a great coaching staff up there, and they've got to a place where they're successful last week against a good Alisal team. So we're looking forward to the ball game, just as any ball game. This is CCS, but kids are getting ready, and I'm sure Baylor's will be ready also.
Now, Steve, this is your 5th straight trip to the CCS Division I semifinals. Do you feel like maybe there's a little piano on your back, though, to get past the semifinals and get to those finals?
Well, we take, it's the old adage, taking one ball game at a time, taking one season at a time. There's the history we really wrap up in our tradition of the pit here in the tunnel, and we owe a lot to alumni that come through here since the 1920s. So we focus on that next ball game, and we're going to be, we'll be ready. And, we don't really focus on that some of that history as far as the 5th time or 6th time or whatever it will be. We enjoy being here, and it's an honor to get to play in the CCS playoffs.
And how about the thought of actually playing them here? I mean, your last semifinals games have up and been in San Jose. In fact, when you played San Benito 3 years ago, it was in San Jose, but you get them here at your place.
Right. Since they changed the format, CCS changed the format a couple years ago. That lends itself to we get with our higher seed, we get a chance to be in the pit, and of course, this is a great place for us and a great place for high school football. I think anybody that gets a chance to come see us, both our teams, they'll have a great experience.
Sure. Now, Steve, you told me from the day I met you 7 years ago that your goal, you want to be playing your best football in November. Based on what I saw last week, you're playing your best football.
Well, yeah, we we're always a work in progress. We start talking about that in February. That it's not good to be playing best in August. We want to be in November when championship football. We always talk about cowboy weather. It gets colder, and we want to be best when it's getting cold. And the kids really, I think they buy into. They understand that those are the games that are important when we get down here. And CCS playoffs is extremely important to us. And we're playing pretty good football now. And we're having fun.
It's funny you mention that because as it does get colder, you have to me, a system that's geared toward playing any weather, any conditions in terms of the way you run the ball and the way you guys play defense.
Yeah, that's part of the whole thought process is that we want to be able to run the ball when the ball gets slick and the temperature is not in your favor, nor is the weather, and so Hollister's the same way. They run the ball real well, effectively. That's their tradition also. So it's going to be a great ball game Friday night.
Now, Steve, you beat them earlier this year, 26-6 in their place. Is it tough to beat a team twice in the same season?
Well, I think if you're thinking about it as one team, these are basically two different teams. We're 2 months after that ball game, and anybody that looks at that is going to be in puts themselves in a heck of a bind because they're different on film. Right. We're different on film. They got some guys back, and so do we that were dinged up a little bit. So it's going to be whoever shows up in the best team plays that other. We talk about beating the team in the white jersey that comes down the tunnel, and we really believe in that. We don't focus in on names or that we don't get in that histrionics about worrying about the names and all that. We're gonna play that team that we see on film.
Yeah. In that first meeting, though, you were down 6-0 at halftime. You guys created 4 turnovers in that game, 3 in the second half. Is it going to be one of those things, though, where maybe just comes down to turnovers?
Well, I think any good championship football game, if you could eliminate your turnovers, you're going to be some more successful. And we work on those things, and I'm sure Coach Cameron does too. And we got to eliminate any turnovers and create some on their side. Puts our offense in good shape, and it keeps defense off the field. And that's what you want to do wherever you're at and whatever level you're at.
I noticed a different set of kids that are playing in the semifinals. I mean, over the last 4 or 5 years. But do you think they feel any pressure in terms of trying to get over that hump and get to the finals?
Well, I think they understand the history of it. It's another team. Our first team that we got to the playoffs was our CCS team. They were 1-9 as freshmen. In 2008, we put a couple of classes together to go to win that first ball game against Andrew Hill, and that was a big step for us as a program. And then every year after that, we want to get to that. Always want to get to the next game, but we always talk about we're going to play until CCS tells us that we're done. And we've been done over the semis over the last 4 years, and it's always that next ball game. We hope to get that next one.
Yeah. Is San Benito, in your mind, doing anything different than they did 4 or 5 weeks ago? Because they're 4-1 in their last 5 games.
Well, I think they have a similar philosophy. They want to be playing good, and in late in the year, they're built that way, as we just talked about. And whenever they come in, we collide. It's like we talked about before. It's going to be a collision. Friday night we play similar football. We're tough, hard nose, running the ball, good defense. They work hard in special teams, as do we. So it's a lot of fun to play those guys, and we look forward to seeing them Friday night.
Steve, give me a feeling before we get out of here of what it feels like to be practicing 15 weeks into the season.
Well, we've had some great focus, and the kids. We talk about this since February about playing well, practicing this week. Our hope is now that we get the chance to play in December. That's our next goal, and if we reach that, then we'll be doing what we talked about in February. And it's going to be a great experience for the kids. It always is. This class, the senior class, knows nothing but play as does the juniors, so they're used to it, seeing it and watching their brothers and cousins and everybody else in the stands, and so it's a great tradition for Cowboy football.
I know Steve is not superstitious here, but the last time we had 3 teams make the CCS finals, Salinas was one of them. Just throwing it out there, Coach.
Well, we hope. I'm not much for superstition, but we'll take anything that might push us over the top.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, John. Thank you.
John, you were at that first San Benito Salinas game this season. Tell me about that.
Well, Hollister, or San Benito, in Hollister, they were up 6-0 at the half in that game, and then Salinas came out in the second half and just dominated the game on defense, forced 4 turnovers, one of them which was returned 95 yards for a touchdown, and won the game 26-6. it was like two different teams. Salinas played well defensively in the first half, holding San Benito to 6 points, but couldn't get anything going offensively. And then they got that ground game going, and it kind of snowballed from there.
So what are going to be the keys to this game, to the rematch?
Well, it's funny because both teams do almost identically the same thing. They run the ball. It's predominantly what they do, and they rely on a very physical defense. So to me, it's going to be turnovers because in that game, Salinas committed 2, San Benito committed 4. 2 of those turnovers that San Benito committed ended up in touchdowns for Salinas. One more thing before we get out of here on this, Dave. I know Coach Goodbody said he's not superstitious, but we got 3 teams in the CCS semifinals. If all 3 should make the finals, it'd be the first time since 2002 we've had 3 teams in the semifinals. Salinas was one of those teams. Just throwing it out there.
Right. We know that Monterey, though, wasn't one of those teams back then, and Monterey is in the Division III semifinals against Aptos at MPC on Friday night. How do you see this game going now?
Aptos has won 9 in a row, and people didn't think a whole lot of them. The Santa Cruz League is regarded as a C League, and I don't understand that at all because I think there's some pretty good teams in that league. But they lost to Encinal and Oakdale, 2 pretty talented ball clubs, one by a point, and since then they haven't lost a game since. They're rolling. They won the Santa Cruz Coast Athletic League. As I mentioned, they've won 9 in a row, so this is a dangerous team right now.
How does Monterey match up against them?
Well, they both like to run the ball. This might be the quickest game of the year. Nobody's going to throw a lot. But Monterey is matched up well against everybody this year. They've played Palma tough. They played Seaside tough. Monterey's led in every game this year, even though they're 9-2.
Wow.
So they run the ball well with Jimmy Hill there at quarterback and Ambrose Cioni, a very talented running back, and they have a physical offensive line, but defense is what's carried Monterey this year, and it'll continue to do that in this game, anchored by linebacker Sean Catoy, who I think is one of the best linebackers in the county. They just don't allow a lot of yards.
What about Aptos' defense?
They've given up some points, but I don't know if that's because they've been up 40, and then kind of
garbage time points,
it could be. I'd have to look at their stats a little more close to see where some of the opponents are getting their points, and they just ran through to Santa Cruz Coast Athletic League. Maybe the one game that I looked at that caught my eye is they beat Alisal this year 28-20. It was a good game. It's a game at the time Alisal was undefeated, and like I said, they ran through the Santa Cruz Coast Athletic League. Say that 5 times. And they did beat SoCal, too, who just beat Carmel in the Division IV playoffs, and they beat them by a point. So they have played some teams.
Okay, some physical teams. Hey, do you think Monterey likes playing at MPC? Do they view that as their home field?
I don't know. They like playing at home now. They get the portable lights up there. They buzz like crazy, so you can't hear a thing. I think they look at that as an advantage. But MPC, to me, is one of the nicest facilities around. And, I couldn't understand why Monterey and Seaside didn't play that game a couple weeks ago. It's a fast track. It benefits a team with a lot of speed. Neither one of these teams has a lot of speed on the outside. They're more inside type running. But I like it.
Okay. Is there going to be a real playoff buzz atmosphere there, you think?
I think so, because the winner goes on to the CCS Division III Finals, which Monterey took part in 2 years ago. Probably playing Valley Christian, though.
Moving on to Division IV, we've got number 1 Seaside taking on number 5 Menlo at Seaside on Friday night. How do those 2 teams match up, John?
Menlo's pretty darn good, and people that haven't seen him, they've got a Division I caliber quarterback who's thrown for almost 2,800 yards and 29 touchdowns this year. He's a good-looking kid in terms of his stature. He's got 3 picks and almost 280 attempts.
Wow.
So they got their hands full.
Okay, and they haven't seen a passing attack like this.
Well, Monte Vista threw the ball a little bit, and actually had some success throwing the ball, kind of dinking and dunking a little bit. This kid's more of a downfield type thrower, although they have 4 or 5 guys with 20 or more catches on that team. I think both these teams would probably prefer to play on an all-weather surface. It'll be at Seaside High where it's grass. It may slow things down a little bit, particularly if it rains on Wednesday or Thursday. But no, they have not seen a team of this caliber in terms of what they do.
But Seaside defensively sees the Turner brothers every day in practice. Does that help?
It's a good point. Because no one's stopped them yet. And I think that's what Seaside's got to really rely on this week is their defense, because we know Menlo can put some points up. We know Seaside can put some points up. But go back to that Monte Vista game that was a 12-7 game in which Monte Vista scored early and then couldn't score again. It was Seaside's defense that won that game for them. I know the Turner brothers connected on that game-winning touchdown, but it was actually Michael Turner on defense that knocked the ball away to save that game and give them another chance.
Now, Menlo beat Monte Vista to get to this game.
Beat them pretty good, too, 42-14.
What do you think that means?
I just think confidence for Menlo. And they play with Sacred Heart Prep, who's in the other bracket with SoCal, and those are 2 talented teams up in the Peninsula
Right.
Bay
Peninsula
Division? Athletic, okay. So, I mean, they've seen some pretty good competition all year. The thing that concerns me a little bit about Seaside is they're talking about getting to that playing game.
Yeah, the state play.
Right, and that's great, but they've got 2 more games to go. And regardless of what happens in the Menlo game, there'll be another game down the road. They've got to take care of business first in the section playoffs.
It hasn't been an easy road for Seaside, has it?
Well,
I mean, they beat Palma, and then I thought, oh, they're going to roll. And then they really had a hard time with Monte Vista, and they had another hard time, I believe, with Alisal.
you know, they're a team that's interesting because they are so talented. They are so gifted. I mean, this is the best team in the county. It really is. But they get complacent. I don't know if they come off a big game and they get a little lax. I mean, that North County game, they're down 6-0 there and had to battle back to win that game, but it was the offense that gave up the touchdown, not the defense. And of course with Monte Vista, and let's take nothing away from Monte Vista, they're a good program.
Right.
But they had to come back in that game as well. It just, to me, they're good sometimes for 2 or 3 mistakes a game, and that's what's got to be eliminated. You can't be making those mistakes at this stage of the season.
Especially with, these are 3 other teams who can jump on that, and I'm talking about the other bracket as
SoCal
well.
and Sacred Heart Prep,
Right,
and, you know, and SoCal, a team that Seaside beat earlier this year. You know, that would be really interesting if they met again. But again, I don't want to jump ahead. You know, we got 1 game at a time
We
here.
don't want to jump ahead, and they certainly don't want to jump ahead.
I mean, it's funny though, and again, we're talking about this. They have a shot at that playing game if they run the table and go 13-0, because one of those teams that was ranked ahead of them got knocked off already.
But do they need some more help than that?
Probably. I mean, there's 2 teams that are ultimately going to meet. One of them's going to lose. So that's 1 team, and then there's probably a little more help. They probably need 1 more team to get knocked off. But again, they can't be thinking about that right now because they got to worry about Menlo, because Menlo's a good team.
Are the guys who do the state rankings, the division rankings, are they looking at margin of victory, things like that?
I don't think so. I mean, I hope not. I mean, I hope it's not like the BCS.
Yeah.
But I think they grade leagues, and they look at leagues, and then, you know, they look at who you've played all year. And Seaside will get some points, brownie points, I guess, for having beaten Palma and having beaten Monterey, 2 A-League teams. But it would help, clearly, if Monterey won the Division III title, and it would have helped if Palma had moved on a little bit in the playoffs,
Right.
too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Palma getting eliminated in the first round by St. Ignatius that way. By
Probably
a wide margin.
it could hurt them a little bit, but again, Seaside's got to take care of business first. They've got
Right.
they've got to win this game, and then hopefully get on and win the CCS title, and then we'll worry about that then.
Okay. So a big week in CCS football. Next week we go to the CCS finals. We could have 3 teams playing for titles, or we could have none. Let's move on to also this weekend on Saturday. It's the state cross-country meet, traditionally held in Woodward Park in Fresno. Who do we have there locally?
Well, we've got 4 teams actually competing. Salinas High's girls team, who won the CCS title for the first time in school history. Santa Catalina's girl team, who won a CCS Division V title for the first time in school history. York's boys team, who is headed back to the state meet. They've done this numerous times in Division V. And Greenfield's girls cross country team. This is a great little story, Dave. This program has done nothing for 14 years. And they're going to the state championships in Division IV. It's a group of girls that consists of just 2 seniors, a freshman, a couple of sophomores, and a junior. It's a great story down there in South County.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is a big thing for them.
It is. And again, as we mentioned earlier, we talked to Roger Shagnon today about Salinas High and them going to the state meet as a team.
Okay, let's hear what Roger has to say about his team.
All right, Roger, describe the feeling of a state meet when you walk into the Fresno on that cool morning and there's 1,000 athletes out there.
It can be pretty intimidating at times. I always try to tell the kids as we go through what it's going to be like, let them understand the week, 2 weeks in, that, hey, this is even the pre-meet, you get there the day before, there's going to be more people than you've ever seen there, and just get them to understand that ramification. Try to get them to understand, hey, it's another meet. It's just a bigger title as it goes through.
I don't know if that works, but you know, you've seen plenty of individuals, you've coached plenty of individuals and teams to the state championship, but you've never coached a CCS championship team like you did with the Salinas girls 2 weeks ago. Was that a surprise?
If you asked me 5-6 weeks ago, yeah, it would have been. As we got going through the season, you know, our first goal was really, hey, I think we can be a top 5. So that's our goal. If we get lucky, maybe we can sneak in and win an NBL championship. Things didn't go as well there for that day, but as we got closer in the season, it was like we started talking about, hey, you got a chance to make the state meet, you know, but you got to put the time in, and they were in that. And then as we got closer to the end of the year, I started looking at times, and we had a big meet at the Monterey Bay Invitational, and then it was, wow, we can actually win this thing. I didn't tell them that until after the league because I didn't want them to worry about it and put that in their mind, but it was one of those things that it slowly became a situation where we could do it. And then after that, after we got done with the racing on that Saturday for MBLs, I told them all, if we do it right, you can have the whole thing. You could have the team title and everything with it.
Now, Roger, you mentioned NBL Finals. That was a race where Cynthia Camacho struggled, got a little dizzy, couldn't finish the race. She comes back a week later and runs the race of her life to help you guys win that team title. Did you see that coming?
Yeah, it's we watched as we go through, and the interesting ones that next week we kind of regrouped. They didn't really let the league thing phase them a whole lot, and then we did some workouts, and they ran really well. So when we did a workout, we kind of went back to something we did beginning of the year, and they all ran a lot faster than they did at the start, and looked really good doing it. So at that point, I was feeling pretty good about it.
Peaking at the right time. What makes this group so special?
They're having fun with it. They're not worried about it. We talk about it. We try to keep them relaxed and calm about the whole thing. I don't make a big deal of it as like it's do or die. It's get out there and compete. And they've taken that because that league, we got the CCS, and I told them, you know what, if it doesn't work out, 2 months ago, no one thought we'd be here.
All right.
So they get along well, and they're fun to be with right now.
Now, you mentioned the state meet obviously being a different caliber type meet. Do you worry at all about the girls maybe just getting a little too much of an adrenaline rush and maybe going out too hard?
A little bit, but it's the same thing. We went through CCS the same way. I understand it's going to go out quick. There's going to be people excited. So we've really talked about just try to stay within yourself. Yeah, you'll go out faster than you're used to going out, but if you're under control, then you should be okay. And we just try to control the first mile, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Hey, before we get out of here, compare Woodward Park in Fresno to Toro Park in terms of the courses. Are they different, and does that make a difference?
They're different if you're a hill runner, then there's a lot less hills involved at Woodward Park. But it's a longer course, so over the years I've kind of looked at it, and it pretty much equates out what you can run at Toro, you can probably run at Woodward Park. And when they went there for the Invitational early in the year, and they all ran about what they were running at that time, and hopefully they'll do it again this Saturday.
It's become a tradition for Roger here. Thanksgiving weekend in Fresno, Saturday, 9 a.m. Thanks, Roger.
You bet.
How do you see our local teams faring at the state meet, John?
Technically, a lot of our teams tend to struggle at the state meet. I think the kids that go there, they're in awe. There's thousands of people there. There's a crowd watching a cross-country meet. It's a course that you can actually watch the meet. And there's very talented runners there, obviously, kids that are going off to run in college. That being said, I forgot Seaside High when we were talking earlier in the segment. Right. CCS Division IV champions, Seaside NBL champions, led by Jose Gonzalez, their distance ace. This is a group of 7 athletes that have trained together all year. Kind of had a feeling, if you talk to their coach, Dwight Smith, he talked about, hey, this is a special group of kids, and they are. I mean, they've been ranked as high as number 4 in the state in Division IV, so they got a chance to do something special as a team.
Right. I don't think Seaside's ever really made big noise at the state meet before, have
One
they?
kid a long, long time ago. I want to go back to before I even was in this business. I want to say
the 1800s or what?
Jeff Magnalanus, back in the late 70s, one of the best premier runners in the county. I just remembered as a kid reading his name in the paper when people used to read papers.
Yeah.
Hey, but Santa Catalina, too, is maybe a team to watch in Division 5. Lizzie Tardu, who we've talked about a lot, outstanding volleyball player, doubles as a cross-country. She won the CCS Division 5 title. This is an interesting group of kids. Most of these runners for Catalina all play different sports. Cross-country is not their primary sport.
That's wild.
But they've come together as one and have put together a CCS championship team.
You're not going to see a team like that in this level, are you?
You probably will not, and it's funny because this is probably, at least for 2 of the girls this week, this is the first time they've actually had a whole week to train, because their volleyball season's over.
Where they could focus on training.
Yeah, so we'll see what that works out.
Okay. Moving to the college sports portion of our show, I'm here with Tommy Wright. This is the end of JC football this weekend as MPC hosted a bowl game. What happened there, Tommy?
Yeah, it was the Living Breath Foundation Bowl. It was really tight through about 3 quarters, and then coming into the 4th quarter, MPC was down by a touchdown to Contra Costa, but they were moving the ball. I thought they were going to come back and tie that game up there late in the 4th quarter, but suddenly Cole Houston had to leave the game. He'd been getting knocked around pretty much the whole game, MPC's quarterback. And then he went running on a quarterback sneak, and he just got crushed. He got his knees taken out from under him. And after that, he had to leave the game. And then a couple plays after that, the backup quarterback threw a interception that was ran back for a touchdown, and that pretty much ended the hopes for the Lobos there.
Okay. How are the Lobos going to look back on this season?
I think they'll reflect well on it. Cole Houston really stepped up as a leader late in the season for this team. They had some struggles early on. They had a losing record heading into their Coast Conference season, but he really proved himself. I think that bowl game was really a great swan song for him. He really, despite the loss, he showed that, you know, he was a legit leader of that football team, and he really roughed it out. He probably could have left earlier in that game. He was getting hit so hard and so often, but he stuck it out. He threw 2 touchdowns and ran for another one. Huitan Booley was his favorite target throughout the game. He ended up with 11 catches for over 100 yards. And I think also you got to look back, and Mike Rasmussen had a really great season coaching this team. He really did a good job at rallying the troops. I saw him at multiple times throughout the game getting his offense together and really pumping them up and getting them back out there. And they continually rallied, stayed fighting until the end. It was a good game, even though they ended up losing by 2 touchdowns.
And how about that MPC volleyball team, Tommy?
Yeah, they're headed to the postseason. They're going to be playing in the NorCal divisional playoffs. It's actually coming up tonight, so by the time you see this video, they will have actually played. But they rallied. They had a really strong performance to end the year, and they ended up seeded in that postseason.
Another team that wrapped up its season was over at CSUMB, and that was the women's volleyball team. How did they end things?
Yeah, that's right. North Salinas' own Julia Ashen, she set the kills record for that team. She needed to get 13 to break the record to get up to 423, and she ended up actually getting 16. And so both her and then Kelsey Johnson set the assist record. She did that earlier on, but she ended up being the first otter to break 1,000 assists on the season.
So they must be feeling pretty good about next season.
Yeah, they probably didn't end the season quite the way they wanted. They weren't able to get a win once they headed into November, after they headed into this month with a winning record. So they probably didn't end the way they wanted to, but they have a lot of really young talent. Both Ashen and Johnston, they're both sophomores. And overall, there's only 2 seniors on this team. So they're going to have most of this nucleus coming back for next year. I think, obviously, it didn't end the way they wanted to, but I think Jody Gary will probably be happy with the way her team played and the way they came together. I think they have a solid foundation to build on for the next couple years.
Speaking of solid foundations, CSUMB women's basketball team and NCAA Division II playoff team the last 2 years, I believe. They've started their season. How are they looking? Yeah, they're looking pretty good. They got things started over the weekend, at least their official start to the season. They had a exhibition game down in USC, and then they had another exhibition game up here, but they got started at Notre Dame de Namur. And they got 2 wins out there, and I think this team's looking really good. They probably have the highest hopes out of any local team this year. Their aspirations, they want to make it all the way to the Elite 8. That's the next step for them. They've been in the tournament a couple years, and I think they feel like they're getting comfortable making it to that step, so they're looking ahead. This team, they've been known for their defense, and it's looking pretty solid once again this year. Do you know when league season starts for them? I'm not sure. That's something we'll have to double check. I think they're quickly approaching that, though. Okay. That's it for Prep Nation this week. We'll be back next week.